And I said, well, I mean, like, in a perfect world, like, because I'd given him a fictional name, but he had this legendary background. So I said, in a perfect world, it would be Stan Lee. And so Jim Jacks goes, oh, well, I know Stan Lee. And I was like, Hollywood is good. They all know each other, like in high school. So I said, can I just change the name? And he said, you give it to him? He goes, yeah, I'll give it over to him, man. And so I just changed the name, and basically I got to go deeper into your catalog. Instead of making references to comic books that didn't exist, I was able to reference stories and Marvel characters and stuff. And I sent it to Jim. Jim sent it to Stan. And then I heard back from Jim the next day, and he was like, Stan read it. And I was like, what do you think? And he goes, well, I'll say to you what he said to me. Quote, I would never say this shit. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. And this is what, and I was like, oh my God, I've embarrassed myself in front of a legend. But it was very specific and very sweet. And this is what I loved about it. He goes, you have Stan talking about some girl that got away. And I said, yeah. And he goes, Stan doesn't want to do that because he's been with Joni forever. There is no one that got away. So he don't want to say it. It's not true to who he is. And I was like, that's fucking adorable, man. He's married like you read about. So when we came to shoot the flick, it was out in Minnesota, and he flew out to shoot it with us. The day I met him, it was like, you know, I'd heard his voice my whole life from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. He used to do the voiceover on that. And prior to that, even just in reading his work, you could hear Stan's voice. His voice was always clearing from the page. It was a formality that I actually heard it with my ears during Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, because he sounded exactly what I thought he would sound like, joy. And there I was standing in front of pure joy, unadulterated, in the middle of Minnesota. And he came to work on this dirty little movie of ours. And so, I'm standing next to my friend Walt Flanagan, the guy from Comic Book Man, and both of us are like, he's here, he's right here. And the first thing I said to him was like, Mr. Lee, thank you so much for doing this. He said, call me Stan. I said, I will. And I've never stopped. But I said to him, I was like, because Jim had told me, I said, I understand there's a piece of this that you don't want to say. You don't have to say any of this, man. You can say whatever you want and stuff. We'll work around and stuff, anything. And he goes, and he tells me, he's just like, well, I don't want to say this, that there was some woman that got away, because I think that would hurt my wife's feelings. He's going, but I don't want to make this bad for you. It's only your second film and you need help. He goes, they showed me a piece of the first movie you made. It was black and white. At least this one's in color. So you're on your way. So he said, I'm gonna say the lines. I said, really? He said, yeah, it's just a movie. It's just all in fun. And I said, okay. And then, but he said, can I later at the end of the movie explain that I was joking? And so there's a scene in the movie where Stan runs into TS and he tells him that he made up some BS so that Stan could go home to his wife and not get in trouble. So we go to shoot that scene, and it was one day he was out there. It was a beautiful day in terms of like, I never expected to be a filmmaker, and there I was, not only just making a movie, but making a movie with a God, with making a movie with somebody that I personally looked up to since childhood, as a writer, as a creator, somebody who invented things, somebody who would make things, a maker. And there he is on our set. We wrap up, he does a perfect job, we get in and out of the whole thing. When we were done, he was sad that it was over, because he's a ham and he likes to be on camera and stuff. But when it was all done, I said, thank you so much. This means the world to me. And he goes, listen to me, spider friend. Because in the scene we talked about that a bunch. He goes, listen to me, spider friend. If you clean up your language, you might go far in this business. And off he went. Now, having Stan in Mallrats has paid the sweetest dividends for the last 21 years. He lent me his legitimacy with that movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, I loved Stan Lee and said, hey, can we put him in the flick? And he deigned to show up. And for years, people in this community particularly would be like, you made that movie that has Stan Lee in it, you're all right, you know? I'm relatively sure there were a few times I was about to get beat up and they're like, you put Stan Lee in that movie, you're all right. And nowadays, everyone puts Stan Lee in a movie and shit, and they make a lot more money than Mallrats did, I'll tell you that.
If you want to know why I love this man, and I know you've all been thinking he doesn't have one redeeming virtue, it's because he has given me the longest cameo I've ever done. He's a great director, and he's great with people. I'm sure you can see just the few minutes he spent on the stage. Minutes that I should have been spending, but what
That's right,
I'm sure you've noticed. He's great with people. He's likable. He's easy to get along with.
Stop.
And once he gets a little more talent, maybe we'll get that sequel. Oh, by the way, you promised I'm in the sequel.
You
right?
are, you're in Mallrats the series, which
I'm
I
getting
on Monday, I leave here tonight. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, I start going out to pitch Mallrats the series, and you're a prominent figure in it. And they put together this board, the Universal Television people, a board of images of all the characters and the family tree and who's related to who. And there's a picture of you, and it's funny because everybody has a picture of who they were in 1995 and who they are in the present. And so you look at like...
That's great.
Yeah, it's very cool. You look at Shannon Doherty, and she, you know, suddenly ages 20 years in the next picture. Jason Lee ages 20 years. Me and Jason Mewes age 20 years. Your picture, they put your picture from 1995, and then right next to it, the same picture from 1995. All right, enough about this. Let's get back into this. All three of you stalked the hallowed halls of Marvel.